Hey guys, Harley from Ari here. Today we're going to show you a little bit behind the scenes of how we build our bikes. We're going to take you through what we do to test ride them, all that, and I'm going to pass it off over here to Dylan now.
Hey, my name is Dylan. I work at Ari. I am a mechanic here. I do ground ups and normal bikes, but today we are going to be showing you kind of the more in-depth of all this. I kind of like to start out by getting the bike out of the box, just seeing what I'm working with, which this one I know is our limited frame. It's the Signal. I'll start by unpackaging it, and then at this point I like to look down the bike, make sure that, you know, there's no visible damage, so that way when it gets to you guys, you know, we've confirmed that it's in good condition. I like to start out by getting all the parts out and onto my desk. Just makes it easier to kind of think through when I'm building it. Where I like to start out is by getting the suspension onto the bike, which I start out by doing the shock. And on these ones, on these Signals, there's a couple other bikes that do this, but in particular the Signal, there are two different lengths of these shock bolts. The shorter one goes in the front. There we go. There we go. There we go. Then I get the fork on the bike. This one is pre-cut. It might need some trimmings. This one is just barely too long. I start out when cutting a fork. I put the stem on the bottom. It's just less likely to get damaged. And then on these bikes, there will be, we spec them with 25 mils of stack. So I'll take just 20, leave 5 mil out, I'll mark it. So that way, when I go to cut it, I can actually see what I'm cutting. Cool. Put it in the middle of the gauge. Cool. Cinch it down. And then I cut it. There are a couple different ways of cutting that. A lot of people use a pipe cutter, so something more similar to this. I don't really like these. They tend to walk on me. Maybe it's a skill issue. I don't know, but I don't like them, so I don't use them. It's a good cut. Then, after that, I file it down, just get that nice and flat so, you know, it won't cut you. Grab our, I think this is called a reamer. I don't know, something like that. Give it a good couple of twists. That way the stem doesn't have like a lot of resistance going on. This one's good. This one already had a star nut installed, but probably won't. If you're cutting it from new, but I'll just reset this one. Cool. Grease is your friend with headsets. Keeps, you know, contaminants out and noise down, which I know a lot of people hate it when they have creaky headsets. So you never have too much. There we go. Get the top cap on. Then after that, I like to get the handlebars on. I think it just works better for my brain. I don't know. Then I carbon paste it. Carbon and aluminum will not stick together. Get it lined up. Get the roll kind of where I want it to be. That looks about right in the stand. At this point, I work from the back of the bike to the front. So I'll take the axle out here. Another place where grease is your friend. Wipe off the axis grease. Then I'll do the rear brake, which is this one. These ones are nice because they come in the SRAM box, so I don't have to go searching for random hardware or anything. So because this bike has 200 mil rotors, or no, 180s. I'll need one 20 mil adapter. These signals are post mount 160. We just run a little bit of a bigger rotor in the rear here just for more stopping power. Get the rear brakes separated here. These are Motive Ultimates, which are pretty cool. You do need these though. These go onto your lever and are important. So that way, you know, you can actually connect everything together and make it one solid unit again. Then these new signals, most of our new bikes actually are fully internally routed. So just no, you know, struggling with IR kits anymore. You just push it through and then it'll come out at the top up by the head tube. Very convenient for this kind of work. I'll just throw one bolt in for now, just so that way it actually holds it in place and I can kind of set the brake line length with that. Set that so it's smooth going into the frame. At this point, so I don't lose a ton of fluid in the lever, I set rear brake hose length. Scoot it all in a little bit. Oh, a finger. And the width of like a T25 or a 4 mil. I'll set the shifter angle at the same time. So then I'll cut the rear brake. This is, you know, just what I do. People are different. I've seen people go really long or really short. I don't know. Kind of get it to a point where I think it needs to be. And then I go 180 from where it normally would be. I'll cut it. Throw that away. Then I throw your little rubber lever and that bolt on. So that way I know it's not going anywhere. I'll take the little barb from SRAM, which is a T8. These are threaded unlike Shimano's and TRPs, which you have to press into the brake line. So then, got to be quick with this, because otherwise you lose a lot of fluid. Then just tighten that down. I think the torque spec on these is about 5 Newton meters. Then I will throw the bottom bracket on, which another place greases your friend. I don't like putting it on the actual bottom bracket cups themselves. I don't really think it greases it as well. I like throwing it in the frame first, so that way I know that all the threads will be at least coated. These are side specific. It says on there, there's a little L and an R. Left is going to be non-drive side, and then right is going to be drive side. These are reverse threaded. I like to kind of twist it back first, just get so the threads kind of lock into each other. And at that point, I will tighten this down by hand first. You should never have to use your bottom bracket tool when installing it first, because if you have to, probably cross-threading the bottom bracket. That's not good. These are very fine threads and do tend to get marred up pretty easily if you're just kind of throwing them in there, kind of slap happy, you know. Cool. These are 50 Newton meters, 50, because they're reverse threaded. You gotta do that. And I just go over them twice, really make sure they're tight. Cool. Then I'll throw the cranks on. Because we have, I think these signals have a 73 mil bottom bracket spacing, and these are dub wide cranks. You have to have a 3 on non-drive side, and then a 7.5 on drive side. There is a thin layer of grease already on the crank itself. I kind of just use whatever SRAM uses. This is kind of an area where specifically the crank spindle, an area that I don't like to go overboard with grease. I feel like it tends to collect dirt, sand, and other stuff that'll make your bottom bracket creak, which, you know, nobody likes that. Torque spec on these is 54 Newton meters, so it's not greatly different from what's already on the bottom bracket. Now I'll do front brake. Same story as the rear one. And I'll just start out getting it kind of where I think it needs to go. I'll then put the lockout on, or the remote on. There it goes. There. Yeah. Didn't need a 20 mil adapter on the front because these RockShox SIDs are 180 post mount. So same story as the rear one here. Just put it 180. That's about right. Not a huge fan of the SRAM T8. That's why. They're slippery. Cool. Next thing I'll do is set the lockout cable length. On these ones, there's a little 2 mil that you have to take out right there that hold this bit in. This is threaded. Quite often, I see these not getting threaded onto the cables like they need to be, and these rear lockouts won't work. That's generally why. Again, internally routed, just throw it through. It'll come out where it needs to go. You gotta put this, the world's smallest 2 mil back on. Cool. On these ones, I cut them just a little short because there's a inline barrel adjuster that you have to put on these, so you don't have to always use the 2 mil on the lockout. There we go. Looks pretty good for now. Cool. Then I'll set cable length. There we go. Okay. I'll set cable tension. There we go. I'll do the front one next. I still like to keep this pretty straight with the actual lockout port there. Then I take a step back, look at it, make sure it looks good. Then you have another world's smallest 2 mil. This one's worse, it's a grub screw. Then test it, make sure everything's working. Yep, there we go. So now I can see that both of these are moving at the same time at the same rate, which means they will lock out at the same time. Who messed with my rubbing alcohol? Laser beam. Oh, there we go. I use rubbing alcohol. There are so many different things you can do for these grips. You want a lot. Otherwise, it makes it really difficult. I mean, it's still pretty difficult anyway. The thing I like about rubbing alcohol, though, yeah, the smell. There we go. Let's do the Pelly. Pelly is kind of a bike protectant. Makes it just a lot easier to wash the bike. If you order it, you'll get a similar kit to this. Of course, we do apply it to the bike before you even get the bike. First, we start by cleaning the bike. Take your little vial, put a lot on there, and then you just wipe down every surface on the bike. Make sure you get a good coating. I let it sit for, I don't know, 5-10 minutes. I'll do wheels next. If you want to look like a real pro, line the valve stem up in the middle of the Maxxis logo. There's one. Cool. Some bling. Put it on. If it's not fully set down into it, you'll kind of be able to tell because it'll sit up a little bit. But when it's like that, pretty flush, then you're good to take your wrench and then just tighten it down. This is another 40 Newton meters. Now the rotors. Don't touch the brake track on these. You'll mess them up, especially with greasy hands. Go in a star pattern. Let's get the wheels on. Grease the axle, doesn't need to be a ton. This is a great time to get your other caliper bolt in. Tighten it down, make sure it doesn't rub. Cool. We'll do the rear. The rear's a little bit weird because you do have to set up your transmission in order to actually get the rear brake to work. Throw it in for now, but I won't tighten it down. We still need to set where, you know, the derailleur goes, which to do that, pretty much the most important thing. You can get away with you know, not having it in the right setting over here, the A or the B. Most important thing is going to be your chain length, which should already be set because we do that here. I know that this is a full chain, which means it's a 126. This bike in particular needs 116. So I'll just count out 10, which is there. Take your chain breaker. It should always be this outside plate that you're cutting on. It should never be this one. It should always end on this plate. Leave it through. The setup gear is 7, which is the red one. Some bikes can be either this red one or the one just above it. Most of ours are on this red gear. There's this little dial on the back of the derailleur over here. This guy here. That's how you know where it is. This one's in B, which is what it needs to be in. With a new chain like this, always have to set your master length. Couple ways of doing this. My favorite and preferred is this way. I'm gonna set. Obviously, chain's gonna be loose. You take an 8 mil and your 6 mil. 6 mil goes on non-drive side and your axle. 8 mil goes over here. Pull it either, you know, just somewhere lower on this cage, but get it so it has tension on the chain. I tighten it down by hand first, and then I'll go back over with the torque wrench. Tighten down your axle. Same thing as the front. Leave them both loose, have your caliper loose. Squeeze your front brake a lot. Tighten down either bolt. I like the top one. Now, we'll want to get our transmission set up. So right now, none of the access is talking to each other. So what you need to do, press and hold this button on the side of the derailleur. You'll see the green light light up, then it'll start flashing like that. That's how you know you're in pairing mode. You'll come up to the shifter. There's another one of those tiny buttons on the back side. Press and hold it again. On the derailleur, it'll rapid blink, and that's how you know you've connected. Press it again, and then you're good to start shifting through your gears. Run through the gears, make sure it's not making any more noise than it needs to. Which it is not. Cool. Now I'll set up the dropper post. Again, this bike has tube-in-tube internal routing, so you don't need to fish around. It's just put it in where it needs to go, and then it'll come out where it needs to go. Obviously, this is way too much dropper cable. All cut. I kind of just measure with my hand. About 4 fingers is plenty. Grab my dropper cable. Grab the little. So these, well, fun fact, these are called, oh, I dropped it. A while back, couple of years, these were called pizza bolts because if you lost one, you would owe the entire shop a pizza because they costed that much. And they were really hard to get. Throw that on the shifter cable, throw it to the top of the cable. Take my dropper. Make sure that's not gonna go anywhere. You will want to throw the dropper lever on. This one doesn't need to be the same as like your lockout. Just set it normally. Carbon paste again. Carbon and aluminum or steel, any metals. Carbon doesn't grip to it. So you need to add that extra layer in between there. There will be a 3 mil on the bottom side. Don't need to take it all the way out, but just loose. Pull a good amount of tension. Tighten that down, don't tighten it down too much. Dropper won't be able to move because the seat collar will be clamping it too hard, so it'll cause way more drag than it needs to. Cool. Now we'll want to get our saddle on. That's about level, so I'll tighten down this back one. Cool. This is where I go back through everything, make sure everything's aligned and how I want them to be. I like the way that looks. Tighten your stem bolts down. Actually kind of nailed it. Cool. Another good opportunity to make sure that the lockout works. And it does. Cool. What we would normally do for the custom setup, we would go through, look at shoulder width, look at inseam, look at all that stuff, and then we can kind of adjust the bike from there. At this point, we have test rid the bike, made sure everything's good. We've fed in the brakes, updated the axis, made sure the suspension is set up. At this point, I would hand it over to shipping, and then they would make sure that the bike is totally safe. We take it down to like 75%, which basically just means we take the handlebars off, take the wheels off, and we take the derailleur off. We do that so it is as easy to get out of the box and onto the trails as possible. That way, when the bike gets delivered, same day you can be out ripping the trails. Thanks for following along. If you want to see more content like this, like and subscribe. We'll have more coming out in the near future. Hope you enjoyed the video. See you next time.